Hi, this is Larry with Man Cave Mayhem. Today we are working on the 2023 Honda Trail 125. We're going to do its first oil change. Now, I didn't go the full distance on this. I've got 277 miles on the bike, not very many miles. They say go 600 before the first oil change. I like to do it a little early just because usually they've found that the oil from the factory is pretty dirty, just from all the debris, the assembly debris and stuff that gets in the engine. I'm kind of anal that way, but you guys can do it at 600 miles. That's the recommended amount. I'm just doing it early. So I've had a few modifications done to this bike, so there'll be some different adjustments as far as like the crash bar. It's a little more difficult for me to get in on my gold plug. I have a gold plug which has a magnet on it, which makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I don't know how much it really helps, but I'm sure it helps some. So I've got a gold plug on it, so that's a different size than the regular stuff. But let's get into getting this oil changed for the first time. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Check us out at Instagram at mancave_mayhem. Now let's get this oil changed. All right, there's gonna be a few parts and tools you'll need to do this oil change. First off, you'll need a container to drain it into. Of course, you're gonna need some oil. I'm gonna run some K&N full synthetic 1040, and I'm running 1040 because we're coming into summer and it's definitely hot here in Southern California, so it doesn't hurt to give that a little bit more bearing protection under load. So we're gonna use that. I got some aluminum foil because I'm not going to drop the skid plate, and this kind of helps divert some of the oil, at least that's what they say. We'll find out. Away from the filter. The way that oil filter is, it tends to drain all over the crash plate or the bash guard and makes a big mess. So we're going to try and avoid that. If you have your standard plug, it's a 12mm socket you'll need, or wrench, but preferably a socket. For the oil filter, you're going to need 8mm socket. I'm using an extension just in a 1/4" drive ratchet. Then we got a 3/8 drive ratchet, and I have a 17mm socket because I have the gold plug. And I have to work around my skid plate because it's close to interfering with the plug, and it's just because I've done the mods. Also, you'll want a Honda oil filter. I wouldn't recommend anything but straight Honda stuff. And the number on that is 15412-MGS-D21. You're also going to want some type of funnel, and I use this. This is actually made for motorcycles to loosen caps, and you'll see what I use this for, but I got it on Amazon. It's pretty cheap, but this is good. I forget what they call it, but it's good for loosening caps and big threaded caps that are on, and you'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to the oil fill cap on the Trail 125. And also you'll want a set of gloves too, maybe, to keep your hands clean. So let's get started. All right, we're gonna come down to the bottom side of the bike here on the right hand side once you've taken the bike for a little rip and warmed it up. And we're going to be locating the plug, which is on the bottom side of the bike here, and you can see it right there next to the skid plate. Now this particular plug is the gold plug, and it's a 17mm, so it's kind of tight in there for me to get to. I kind of have to negotiate that with a swivel head socket, so that's what I'll be doing. Your plug will be easier to get to because it's smaller and it won't be intruding into the cover as much. So if you're using a standard plug, it's a 12mm. I'm using a 17mm, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop that loose. I had it pre-loosened, so that's why it came off. Now you're going to want to take your container and get under here. Now here's the cool thing. I know already that this is going to spill all over the place, and that's what kind of sucks because I get it all over my camera and everything else, but that's the price of doing business. I never have been able to really do a clean oil change on the ground. So, but I have my other lift tied up, so that's kind of the way it goes. There it is, all over the camera. Wonderful. So I managed to get oil all over the camera. How about that? All right, now that my action camera and floor is well lubricated, you just want to let that drain really well And of course, it did get some on the skid plate on the inside, which I don't think the foil is going to really help avoid much of it, but we're going to go ahead and just do it with the skid plate on. Anyhow, once you've drained that nice and good, you can put your drain plug back in. I usually leave it out while I'm taking the filter off too, but I want to show you guys what this gold plug pulled up. There's a lot of metal, and a lot of that's metal from just assembly, everything else, and probably clutch material. So you collect a lot of that debris that would be otherwise running around your engine. So that's a good thing, I think. So hopefully you can get a good view of that plug. I'll get it up close for you. Yeah, so there it is. So we'll clean that gold plug off and we'll move on to the filter. Trying not to get the camera. All right, now that my action camera and floor is well lubricated, you just want to let that drain really well. And of course, it did get some on the skid plate on the inside, which I don't think the foil is going to really help avoid much of it, but we're going to go ahead and just do it with the skid plate on. Anyhow, once you've drained that nice and good, you can put your drain plug back in. I usually leave it out while I'm taking the filter off too, but I want to show you guys what this gold plug pulled up. There's a lot of metal, and a lot of that's metal from assembly, everything else, and probably clutch material. So you collect a lot of that debris that would be otherwise running around your engine. So that's a good thing, I think. Hopefully you can get a good view of that plug. I'll get it up close for you. Yeah, so there it is. So we'll clean that gold plug off and we'll move on to the filter. So if you have a magnetic plug like a gold plug, once you clean it off, go ahead and put it back in, snug it up. You can check your crush washer and see if it needs to be replaced. Mine looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it back in, tighten it up, then we'll move on to the filter. Now you're going to want to take your ratchet with your 8mm socket and extension, and you're just going to want to take off these two bolts that are super tight, that are located just below the Honda emblem here on this round circular part. That's where your filter's at. That's the filter housing. Once you get these off, then we'll move to the next step. All right, once you get that cover off, you're going to want to once you get the cover off, you're going to want to pay close attention to that O-ring that goes around the cover. You can change it if you want to. Mine's in good shape, so I'm going to reuse it. As long as you don't get any leaks or anything, you know it's in good shape. Now pay careful attention to the orientation of the filter. There's a little spring that goes on the back side of the filter here, and it fits on the back location of the filter, which will not have the rubber O-ring on it. It'll be the metal section. So we're going to set that aside. Now we're going to get our pick tool and we'll pull that filter out. Right here. Once you have that filter out, I like to go in and I like to just wipe the inside of the housing out just to get any excess oil out of there. Pretty simple process. Just get that all done. The foil worked okay, not great. And now we're going to put the new filter in and make sure, like I said, pay careful attention. This is the side. The metal side is the side the spring goes in. The rubber side goes towards the bike. You just pop that in there and you can feel it kind of click in. So let's do that. And then you're going to put the spring back on here. And we'll throw the cover on. right, now we're at the part where we're going to add some oil. First, we want to access it. This is where you're going to access it. And this is where my tool comes in handy. You can use a screwdriver, but this tool won't mess up the cap. It's made for that type of stuff. And I forget what it is. It's a motorcycle, whatever. I'll try to include it in the description in the comments below. Now, when you pull this cap out, many times you can see this ring likes to stay here, and it's not really supposed to stay there. That's the O-ring. See how it kind of sticks there? It's supposed to be on this cap. The other mistake that people make is they screw the cap down to check the oil level on the bike. You're not supposed to do that. You fill it up and then you just set the cap in like that to check your oil level. So make sure you do that when you're checking oil level. You do not thread the cap in. I repeat, do not thread the cap in. So now all we need to do is take our funnel and add some oil to it. Now we're going to add our oil. And I believe it's just under a quart that Honda calls for. We'll see here though. We'll see how accurate they are. I'm going to add about 3/4 of the quart of oil. Also, it's probably good to start it. Get some of that oil circulating through the oil filter before you call it good. I got a little bit left in my jug, so we're going to pull the funnel and check it. Making sure your dipstick's nice and dry. You put it in. I'm barely getting it. It's barely registering on the dipstick, so I know it's going to need more. Check it again. She's almost full. She took a little less than a quart. Now I'm going to fire it up and double check it. Make sure that it doesn't need more, because I do want some oil circulating through that filter. That's going to about wrap it up for this video, folks. The bike ended up taking a full quart of oil, and I'm going to have to check it again just to make sure, but it might even be able to use just a little bit more, but it's good at a full quart. Yours may vary. It really depends on how much oil is drained out, how much is left in the bike, if you change the filter or not. I always change the filter every time I do an oil change, but some people don't. Anyhow, also, if you have any questions about the motor oil that I used, listen, it calls for 1030 weight oil. That's a standard oil that's used in this bike. But because of high temperatures, you can raise that top number up a little bit. Now, I usually don't mess with the lower number, but sometimes you can raise that top number up, and that adds a little bit more shear strength on the bearings and stuff. So if you have any questions about that, I'm not an oil guy by any means, but I do it, and I've never ran into any problems at all. You know, it may affect your fuel economy, but that's about it. But man, under the extreme temperatures that these little bikes go through, it never hurts to protect it just a little bit more. Thanks again for watching, folks. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Check us out at Instagram at mancave_mayhem. And just remember, folks, I'm just a man in a cave causing mayhem. Thanks again for watching.